Hello art students, this is Mrs. Brand here. Today I'm going to show you how to edit our portraits for the Humans of Lift for Life project. The portrait that I'm going to be working on is the one that I will print 13 by 19 for our display at school. First thing you need to do is download the picture that you want to edit from your Google Photos album. When I click on the picture, I can go to the three dots in the top right corner and say download. From here, I can open the file by dragging it into Photoshop. And I can begin by adjusting my exposure. The first thing I want to do is go to Enhance, Adjust Lighting, and check my levels. You can also do a Command L. When you look at your levels palette, on the right are your whites, on the left are your blacks, and in between is your grays. I like to make sure that my pointers are starting at the beginning and at the end of this wave. You can check the preview box to turn it on and off to see the difference. The next thing I'm going to do is check my saturation by going to Enhance, Adjust Color, Adjust Hue Saturation, and I can move the slide bar to see if I want to saturate the colors or make them less intense. And then again, you can check the difference with your preview bar. I think the blue of the water in the background looks better when it's a little bit more saturated, so I'm going to leave it like this. The last thing that we need to do when we're adjusting our picture is to check the cropping. So when you go to crop, you can remove anything that you find distracting, but we don't want to crop it to a specific size, so you should set it to no restriction. This will also make sure that there's no resolution selected. That way you're not making your picture degraded by changing that size. I think I want to see what it looks like if I crop out the bottom portion of the picture. So I'm going to go with this cropping. And now I'm ready to add the quote from my subject. So the first thing we need to do when we're going to add our quote is create a box that's going to have a color background, a black background, that we will adjust the transparency on so that our white text can show better. We need to go to the marquee tool. And when I click on it, I want to make sure I select rectangular marquee. And I'm going to create a box that's going to take up the bottom portion of my picture. I want to fill that box with black, so I come over to my color palette and I'm going to click on the default so that black is in the foreground, and then I'll select my paint bucket and then click inside. One thing I noticed that I just did wrong was I forgot to create a new layer. So I can Command Z to undo, click on the new layer button above my layers menu, and now I can try the paint bucket again. This is too dark and covers up too much of our picture, so we want to change the transparency of this layer so that we can still see through it to see our photograph, but give our text a nice backdrop. I can Command D to deselect the marquee, click and make sure layer 1 is selected, and change the opacity to 38. We want everybody's picture to look fairly uniform, so I'm strongly suggesting that you use the same opacity of 38. Now I'm ready to select my type and enter it. When I click on the type tool, I can click and drag where that rectangle was to create my bounding box for my type. And now I want to select my font. This part is very important because we want everyone to use the same font. So you need to find one that's called Super Clarendon. The list is in alphabetical order. Super Clarendon Regular. And then I'm going to change my size to about 140 because my picture is still pretty large, so I'm going to need a large font size to be able to see it. I also want to justify the font to the left, and when I type just a little bit, I see that that's a pretty big font size, so maybe I'll change it to 100. As you are typing, we can check to see if we need to adjust it again, but we don't want the text to take up anything much larger than this bottom fifth of the picture. So I think I'm going to try maybe 72 point to see how that does. Now I'm ready to enter the text from my interview into the text box, so I can go back to my web browser and have my interview transcription document open. I can highlight the text and then Command-C to copy, then go back into Photoshop and double-click on the text layer to get my cursor to show up again, and then I can Command-V to paste. So this is looking very large for this small box, so it looks like I need to adjust my type again, but then I also need to change my text color to white. So I'm going to double click inside the text box so that everything is selected, change my color to white, and then let's try a font size of 48. Don't forget to add your quotation marks because this is a direct quote from your subject. And it looks like I might need to adjust the font size again, so I will try 45 or maybe 36. And it looks like 40 is the winner. I think I want to move my text down a little bit so that it fits nicely within that light transparent box. And then I can Command plus to zoom in a little bit. Double check your spelling and grammar. Command 0 will bring you back full screen. And I think I am done. The last thing we need to do is make sure that we save, but you need to save it as a new name so that our original JPEG file is still intact. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to call it the name of my subject and then the number 1. And I'll save it into my downloads because I'm going to upload it into my Photoshop folder to share for printing. After saving the Photoshop file, the last thing that I need to do is also save a merged copy of the file as a JPEG. So when I say merge, that means I want to make all of the layers into one layer. So you can go to the menu option for the layers palette, which is in the top right corner, and then you can say merge visible. Now everything has become one layer. I'm going to go into my file menu and say Save As and change the format to a JPEG. I can then upload this picture as a JPEG into the album that I'm going to share with this student. Before closing Photoshop, one more thing we can do is compare our final version to the original file that we started editing. So I'm going to go File, Open Recently Edited Files, find that original file name, and then I can click back and forth on the tabs to compare. So this is before, and this is after. And that's it. Thank you.